What's good, party people? This is According to Woods, and I have the honor and privilege of talking to my friend, your friend. He is a Shamrock FC veteran. He is the one, the only Robert Audit Fichtner. Did I get it right?
You got it right, man.
Yeah, win. I fucking win. But Robert, how are you, bro?
I'm doing really good. It's been a good day. It's been a good day. I got my coffee here, just hanging out at home. Yeah, doing real good.
Yeah, actually, you made my day because, and like, it's been a wild, wild weekend for this guy, right? So, had a couple friend gatherings and stuff like that. Shout out to my boy Raymond Bozio. It was his birthday. He just turned 35, and like he gives me an address, and it's I don't know until I get there. It's Red Foo from LMAFO, the party rocker, whatever. It's that
Yeah.
dude's house in the Hollywood Hills, and I'm like, what are we doing? Yeah,
Whoa.
yeah, yeah. So our good friend Everett Osmer has been like, "Hey, you got to have Robert on and whatever." And I didn't get in contact. I mean, like, I didn't read my messages until maybe this morning, and this couldn't have turned out better because, like, we were kind of talking off air, and like, ah, you're a cool dude. Like, yeah, of course I'm gonna have him on the podcast, but it took me a while. So thank you for just being game to do this.
Absolutely, man. I hope your weekend was good. That sounds really fun, honestly.
Yeah, game night with some close friends, like everything, like when you move in circles and you're just like everywhere I go, it's just like love that I can give, love that I can receive. That's it, man. Like that's where you know you're winning in life. I feel like that's right.
I'm searching for that. That sounds beautiful, man, for real.
Okay, well let's search again. I mean, you got Everett, you got me, you got your team, you got your family. Let's so you got to start, and let's kind of continue on that. How about that?
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, speaking of starts, I mean, let us know, like, how did this wonderful human being get to be? And I'm going to put you full screen, so don't freak out. But yeah, we're going to do that. But how did you, like, where did you grow up? You know, how did you first come in contact with combat sports? All of that jazz.
All right. So I was born in California, in San Francisco. My parents spent a lot of time with my pops growing up, and my dad always watched the UFC. I was pissed. I would never have thought about doing it, but I always saw it growing up. What's it called? It took like maybe 2.5 years ago. I was the age of 22. I was at a gym and they had a punching bag, and I would just work that punching bag. I'd go to YouTube and learn tutorials on how to punch and kick and all this. And eventually, I had local fighters in the area watching me and post my clips of me hitting the bag and stuff. And they would always want to invite me to train. And that's where it really started. Their confidence in me brought me to an MMA fight. Like 5, 6 months of training myself, I ended up getting pushed into a fight. And that was an amateur fight in MMA, yeah, at 140 pounds. It was so eventful because I had a wife and a kid, and I had a kid on the way. He was just born, and I was like, man, he's born. I think I can do this. You know, it was him being born that kind of let me. He was born a little bit earlier, and the fight was right after that. So he was going to be born on the fight. I said no. He was born a few weeks premature. I said, all right, let's do it. I showed up short notice for a fight, and I won. And from there, that was 2 years ago, April 2023. Almost 2 years ago, and that's where it all started. Just training and other fighters pushing me to train, other pro fighters, and they gave me the okay to, all right, get in the cage, go do this fight, go do this fight. I was hesitant, but my son being born allowed me to go. What made me want to start hitting the bag? I am not sure. I was doing 2 a days every day, just hitting the bag, so disciplined. I really wanted to learn it, but I wasn't trying to pursue a career in it. But I say God wanted me to do it. It sounds crazy. God might want someone to go punch someone else, but it really did help me in my life. So I can see why God put it in front of me.
Uh, I think that's cool. I think it's even cooler. Uh, I too, born in San Francisco. Yeah,
Let's go.
we're
Let's
two
go.
Bay Area kids, doing the thing, right? Finding our way
Yep.
in combat sports. Uh, Wait, how long did you spend in the Bay?
Man, maybe my first 6 months of life, and then my father, he was an engineer. We jumped to France. We jumped to Switzerland. I wasn't even 2 years old. I lived in so many different countries, man. But my dad, it looks like his parents migrated here, and that's where they were. A bunch of his siblings as well, and that's where he brought my mother, and that's where I was born. But we didn't
And
spend much time there. But we constantly visit, but we didn't spend a lot of time there.
in regards to where you are now, where are you now?
Right now, I'm in Liberal, Kansas, man. It's the bottom southwest corner of the state. It's a very small town, maybe a population of 26,000 people. It's really secluded. Like the next towns are like an hour away, almost 40 minutes away. It's really small, bunch of Western vibes, and yeah, right over the panhandle of Oklahoma, right on top, the bottom left corner of Kansas.
Wow, that's wild. There's so much to unpack, right? So, first off, I want to get into and shout out to Kansas and Oklahoma and that whole Midwestern deal. I got to travel through Oklahoma not too long ago, probably about 2 years ago. Some just good people, man. There's good people. There's good people everywhere, but like it's I'm gonna say it. It's a vibe. I hate using like words like that, like buzzwords or whatever. But like, yeah, it is a vibe. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of grief, but there's a lot of triumphs too in things that like some people maybe living in the big city take for granted. Like that doesn't do it, and like socioeconomically not doing too great, right? But their life condition is up versus like people that like live in high rise apartments. I'm not generalizing it, but it does happen where you kind of get lost and whatever, and none of those things make you happy. You have the fancy car, you live in the zip code, you do the whatever, but there's something there that's missing, right? So, and both two things of life through different perspectives and dimensions of life, right? Existing in the same kind of place, right? But speaking of dimensions, like your son was about to be born on your fight day, and you thought about pulling out, and he's like, I don't know, maybe just cosmically, innately, what have you, he gets born, you know, early, right, premature, and that allows you to fight. And I mean, also as you're fighting, he's fighting, right? Because he didn't get the whole full gestation period, right? So he's fighting, you're fighting, and look at you guys now, right?
Right. That's crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, in terms of like getting into it, where were you hitting the bag? Were you hitting it at like a regular like MMA gym? Were you at like this cardio kickboxing deal? Like what, set the tone. Like where were you at?
It's the community gym, man. They had a sauna. I love the sauna. And they had a old bag right next to the sauna, and I loved hitting the bag. And yeah, that's really where it started.
And then you said your dad had, got you. Well, I mean, he was already watching like UFC, early UFC. So, like, do you remember like your first kind of inclinations that that was a thing?
He would always talk. He'd always say, "That's Anderson the Spider Silva. He's so freaking good, man. He's a beast." And he'd just try to sum it up. He wasn't the biggest fight fan, but he knew enough. Be like, "That's George St. Pierre, my favorite fighter. Oh, George St. Pierre. Oh, that's Forrest Griffin." Back when it was on Spike TV, I'd be right there watching it with him. But I really wasn't focused and digesting anything at all. But after a few years, I grew up and I started seeing all these names on YouTube, and UFC started blowing up. That's whenever I really started just unraveling those memories and just remembering my dad and I's love for it, I guess. I didn't have the biggest love for it, but I enjoyed being with my dad and watching it with him.
So I gotta ask, right? So once does your dad know that you are going to this gym and hitting the bag, or even start to train? Like when does that happen? That's got to be. I mean, for a dad to
Yeah.
love it, right, as much as he did, right? And you're like, maybe he didn't. It just the descriptions of it were just, oh, that's a bad dude, Anderson Silva, whatever. But like there are people that are fighting now that don't know the names that you just expounded on. So, like what your dad did. I mean, he put that seed in there, so it worked.
My father, he's yeah. The thing is, divorced parents, like I mentioned in the beginning. He's in Oregon. He's far away. I haven't seen him in a few years. He's about to come down in a few weeks, and I'm gonna see him again. It's been a while. But today he's like, "Oh, that's stupid. Go do something else." Blah blah blah. Oh, I think it's really dumb. Blah 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 blah. But I think deep down he might be real happy to see me get these wins and get these knockouts in. But yeah, he's really
Well,
not too involved with it today. With fighting. Yeah, we got our own lives, kind of.
well, I mean, it kind of is that way, right? Because, well, first off, what he does by trade, right, an engineer, right? I've read, I've worked in places with engineers, and then when I started training, not first started training, but I used to train at a place in Pasadena, California, where like the Rose Bowl is and what have you, but also like JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, would
Mm,
that's in like kind of North Pasadena, probably with everything that's happened in the last couple of weeks, probably torched or near it, but I digress. To me, that was like the beauty of combat sports to me, because we had engineers from JPL that would train at Fight Academy in Pasadena, right? And
right.
they're literally helping shoot things into moon and you know unravel complex equations and stuff like that. Like some of the most brilliant minds that the world, not just the US, you just happen to be situated here, but like from all over the world, Afghans, Chinese, like some of the most brilliant minds and what have you. And then maybe they're overweight, or maybe they like everything that they're doing just doesn't cut it for them, and they wander into MMA gym or what have you. And you see people with criminal records and divorces and and that's not everyone, right? I bet you would think these two things don't, like engineers, like college educated engineers and like people that have tattoos and like these things, right? But in this one instant, that person, right, is the coach, right? The person that in any other deal would be like downtrodden and not worth the time or whatever, and is the superior to the person that is the engineer, right? And trying to get them to do a three punch combo, right? Jab, jab, hooks, slip, slip, right? And the engineer can't get it, and like the patience of whatever. And you just see this a wonderful role reversal, right? That happens, and it happens at every gym. You have felons and cops training together and calling each other teammates. You call like like diametrically different, right? Political beliefs, religious beliefs, whatever, right? Socioeconomic constructs and whatever, and you get to see these people just like in any other, like you see their posts on social media. These two things are not the same, and then they go out and they grab some acai or share training tips, or like, oh, I got you here, but here's what you, if you're in that position again, this is what you should do. And this like transfer of knowledge and like experience and everything that happens, and you start seeing like everyone doing it like they're doing a barbecue together. And again, you wouldn't think, because they're so diametrically different, at least and when you look at it at first. But in this, like on the mats, on the canvas, and it's all the same. Like it reduces you to your most pure form. Like everybody was like, "Oh my god, like you're so angry that you were going to take a martial arts class." It's like, actually, cool. Go angry to a heavy bag. I'd like to see you try. You'll last all of 20 seconds, if that. Like like somebody's choking you out. 7.5. They're really angry, and then their arms blow up. So, to me, it's the greatest thing ever, right? Like Van Gogh, Picasso, they had their paints, right? And sculptures and all that stuff, right? and they started with a canvas. Well, what is true for every combat sport? Pro wrestling, amateur wrestling, jiu-jitsu, catch wrestling, Muay Thai, karate, whatever. Tatame, it's the canvas. So the tools are different, but what you have, those are your paintbrushes. These guys right here, that's your paintbrushes. You are painting a masterpiece. You're sculpting a masterpiece with the tools given to you innately from your coach, from your family, right? And you're painting a masterpiece. It just happens to be on somebody's face and separating them unceremoniously from consciousness. But to me, it's a Michelangelo painting. I don't know. That's just me.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that might be where your dad is at. I'm not, speaking for your dad. Don't know your dad. Obviously, he created you. Your dad's awesome in my book. But I've kind of been there with my dad. My dad was a musician. All I wanted to do was fight. Everything fight. Right. And we just didn't. We we had art, we had love, but we just expressed it differently. Right. And I think that's that. And then also, this is this male thing, right? So your dad turns you onto it, even though you don't know it really, right? And then you start to fight, and then, like your first fight happens, when your son, is about to be born, right? So there's a prevailing theme that happens, and all of that kind of is centered, and the backdrop of it is MMA. There's a deeper story, but like this, how cool is it? Like MMA gets to play a backdrop to the tale of three generations of your family.
That is crazy. You're man. That's crazy that you put it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, again, you can if you look hard enough, right, you'll find everything that you don't like about a particular thing, right? But if you also look hard enough, you'll find the good in it too. So both things could be true, right? So that's the thing. But for me, I see the beauty in it, and I'm just like, oh, that's cool, man. That's really really cool.
That's beautifully said, man. You're a smart dude for that one. I wouldn't have put it like together like that. That's really that
Yeah,
hit the spot.
thanks. I talk on the internet and I share memes. So shh. No, but I digress. So after that first fight, right? Your son is born. You're already married, what have you. So what does that do to you? Like, are you like, oh man, because that first fight or first couple fights, right? Like that'll do something. That'll either solidify at some point, like, hey, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, or man, I don't want that smoke. That was weird. I'm cutting weight. I'm like on death's door, trying to make myself a bloody weight. That like whatever, right? I'm angry because I haven't eaten. My body's going through changes. There's hurts that I don't know, whatever. And then sometimes, man, butterflies, stage fright. That's a real thing, right? Because I know so many people that are monsters in the gym, monsters. They're world beaters, right? Like some of the most proficient striking, grappling, whatever that you will ever see, right? But then when they get on that stage and the lights and selling tickets and your whole family's there and everybody, oh, it's on TV, it's streaming on YouTube, whatever. And then that monster gets reduced to human,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So, with that all being said, like, where were you after that first fight? Like,
So,
what was your mindset? You had a lot on your plate. Where were you at?
so that first fight, leading up to it, I was supposed to fight at 125, and it was going to be against a kid like similar skill and all that. But it was a really small promotion, and there was a lot of people pulling out. And there's this one guy that they were marketing that they would always show on the page, big old muscular dude, white guy. His name's Sean Lynch, and he was 145 pounds, a weight that I could never even reach. And I would just see that guy. Okay, my guy pulled out. They gave me another one. That guy pulled out. and that's like 2 pullouts in a week, and the fight's coming up really soon. And then that kid sold so many tables. His opponent pulled out too, and the promoter, he's like, hey, you can beat this guy up, blah blah blah. I'm gonna put you with him. He probably told that guy the same thing, but he wanted to save that all those tables and all that stuff. So they matched me with him. So seeing that guy that I was fearing, like, holy crap, that guy's pretty scary. I wouldn't fight him. I ended up getting matched up with him. So that in itself was a whole mind trip. And I had a bunch of people in my life that were kind of coaching me. I didn't have a coach or a gym, and they were telling me, if you don't feel it, like, don't do it, bro. Like, da 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 da. I think that's a bad move. Don't get screwed over. But I just said, I told one of them that I think I can do this. I think I can do this. And they said, if you believe in yourself, man, go ahead, go crazy. That's awesome. Then I ended up getting a flawless victory against the guy. I like choked him out and kicked him, and it was a pretty good first fight. So after that, I had immense confidence. I felt really good. I felt the stars aligned, everything. I felt really happy. Yeah, my son was born. I had a lot of support from the community. It was amazing. It was a dream come true, really. After I ended up going to the gym that's local, I moved back to this town, and then I started going to the local MMA gym, and that's where everything kind of. I was in training myself. It was a jiu-jitsu gym. It was a really old instructor, and he really didn't really teach much. And I could honestly say I got worse there. He matched me up a few times, and I got nothing but wrestlers. I lost 2 fights after that in a row, and it was tough, like just mentally, and a lot of injuries from the gym, because all you'd have was, I'm not trying to disrespect the guy, but every day was just sparring, and then no technique, and yeah, it's just a bunch of bullies in there, and it was a really bad gym, Not that I got bullied or anything, but it was nonsense, and I really did not get better throughout that time. But after I left that gym, I went and reached out to other promoters in the area. One of them's name's Robert Madrid. He's in Guyman. It's in Oklahoma. He's a bare knuckle fighter at the BKFC league, and I started looking up to him. It was divine how he came into my life. It was really cool. He just saw me at a spar at a local boxing gym. I went to a boxing gym. There were spars. He brought his guys. I sparred one of them, and he's like, "Dude, you're good. You got it. I'm gonna line you up with a fight." And that's what ended up leading me to Shamrock. He also got me in some boxing fights, and I won my first boxing fight with him. And then he took me to Shamrock. But yeah, there was a period where I was like, it's just for me, I'm losing. I was just in the wrong place. So that dojo wasn't pushing me forward or moving me forward. And a lot of fighters followed me after I left, and now they have big opportunities coming for them. And it's just everything changed. And it's crazy that one gym can hold you back. That one coach, a bad coach, can really hold you back.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? So my dad used to have this saying, right? And I believe it to be true, where everyone gets your respect, right? Because the amount of circumstances that this person had to go through to where they're in your space, right? Like, think from conception, how many, sperm to egg, right? Like, the parents have to get along or don't get along, and how they grew up. There's so many variables in that, right? And then their upbringing and all of these things, right? Then now they're in your space, right? In your presence, right? That person deserves your respect because they've gone through, just to be alive, to be where you are. They've done it. They've done it. They've, had heartbreak and triumph and tragedy and whatever, and somehow they're still standing in front of you, right? So, with that gym, right? Like, you're riding a high. Your son is born. You got to win. Like, all of these things, and then you're situated in a place where, like, it's not conducive to your growth and everything like that. You're growing in so many other aspects of it, of life, right? But, like, your fight career, the thing that you're finding that you belong in, that's kind of faltering. and even the wherewithal to know, like, I'm not in a good gym, right? And then, not that you meant it, you were doing the best for you, right? This is like the proverbial, like, you can't help other people when you need help yourself, or you can't clean up other people's yards when your yard ain't clean, right? Because, like, here you are doing something for yourself and your longevity, right? For your career, your health, everything like that, right? And then you're that beacon of light to other people at the gym. Are like, yeah, maybe this isn't the one, right? Maybe there's something better out there, and they through you and their own endeavors find themselves in better situations. That, again, like you said, they're getting more opportunities now, like big time opportunities. And who's to say that would have happened if you guys had all stayed?
Yeah, it's crazy how that worked out because yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, all of it had to happen, right? That saying, positive vibes only, right? Like, people live by that, and that's cool, man. But, like, the positive vibes only, and not to pick on her, right? But Ronda Rousey, right? She had a unique upbringing, right? And then, she becomes, like, that's one of the great butterfly effects, right? What if Daniel Cormier and Ronda Rousey, they were at proverbially the same Olympics, right? Or at least one of them, right? What if they had gotten the gold medal? Would they have pursued MMA as hard as they did and become the champions, and let that really, like, I mean, drive them? The fact that they went as far as they could go, and I think Ronda's a bronze medalist, and DC was like number 4, right, in terms of medal contention when he went, right? If they had won, would would they have done well in MMA? You know, now we have some context, right? And so Kurt Angle, Olympic gold medalist in '96, goes to wrestling, absolutely demolishes. He's one of the greatest ever, right? And then on the other side, right, you have Henry Cejudo. He actually did win the medal, and then went on to do so many great things. And one would argue that he's one of the greatest of all time, right? But separate scenarios, right? But I mean, who's not going to say that Ronda Rousey, Daniel Cormier, and Henry Cejudo aren't some of the greatest of all time?
That's right.
Kurt Angle's the greatest of all, or one of the greatest of all time in terms of wrestling, and there's so many other NCAA wrestlers that doesn't pay. Like, there was no Jordan Burroughs before Jordan Burroughs, right? Like, you know, so to take it professionally, you got to go into the professional wrestling ranks to earn a living, right? And so all of those things had to happen, right? So you leave the gym, your son's born, you're taking losses. I mean, obviously not all in that order, right? And now you find yourself in a better situation, right? How did that transform you? Or, I mean, what are some of, like, the lingering effects of you leaving and finding a better situation?
Just seeing how the universe works, man, really takes care of you if you have that burning desire. Um, Stupid message, but I saw so many signs from God. I was going through a lot at the time too, separation, and custody battles and all this and that. But there were so many things in the fighting world that were going in my favor, and people were seeing me suffer and seeing me push through, and seeing all the blessings come in at the same time. And there's so much love that I'm getting from my community, and that's what really pushes me as well. But yeah.
And I mean, that's great, right? That triumph and tragedy, right? That there's two things that'll drive you, right? And who's to say, if you won your next 2 fights and whatever, you might be content, right? Like, I'm a firm believer in you. I've seen it happen, right? Where somebody takes an L, like, literally and figuratively takes an L, and then come back stronger because it haunts them. Like, when you win, I mean, it's very easy to kind of take your foot off the gas pedal. I did this right, to do this right, and then improve on those things, and maybe not, you know, try to improve the things that you're deficient on. right? It's there, you know, it's there in the back of your head, but like maybe you don't know that, right? So when you lose, you're obsessed with what went wrong. You can't sleep until like the next time you can go to the gym or whatever. And then you get to master the thing that, you know, if it was a slip, right? You know, that you could have done. Now you're practicing that slip 1,000 times a day, right? If it's a, you know, a particular hold that you lost, you know, you're going to think about like 10 to 20 different counters so you'll not be in that same situation again, right? You don't get that by winning. Some do. That's awesome. But sometimes it's the loss that drives you to do better.
Definitely. Yeah, it definitely does transform you.
So in terms of the phases of transformation, like where are you now? Like this is, are you pretty adamant? Like this is combat sports. This is where to go. I'm going to take this and see how far I can go with it.
Yeah. My last fights, man, I've dropped every single person. It's insane. I've discovered the right hand, and it's just planting on people, and I've gotten knockdowns and knockouts. I've broken people's faces pretty darn good. I got a knockout yesterday in a sparring session because a town came over, and I have an immense confidence right now in my hands, and it's insane. It's just it's insane that this came out of nowhere. I'm dropping people now, and that a lot of people, I guess that's what they want to see. You know, that they really want to see the knockout, and you know, not much of the wrestling and stuff. And with all that being said, I do think all my losses come from grapplers, state champs, 12th ranked national Greco-Roman wrestlers. Like I've gotten I've gotten my fair share of wrestling losses, and that's really where all my losses have come from. But they do get rocked or they do get dropped before they submit me. And yeah, with all that being said, bare knuckle. I'm going to bare knuckle this year. I have a contract with a management agency that just came in a few weeks ago. Um, they reached out to me after a knockout win in Wichita, Kansas. Uh, it was the guy's corner. He's a bare knuckle fighter. His name's Justin Martinez. He saw me knock out his guy, and yeah, there's been a lot of love and a lot of people coming into my life from different angles. And the guy I knocked out, his corner, is my new manager. It's crazy, and
Wow.
he's a bare knuckle fighter as well. Well, he's my coach, but I don't really get to go train with him much because he's an hour away. He's pretty far, but he shows up. He gets me all the fights. He got me in a Shamrock. We got another fight in Shamrock February 22nd, but my big, it's all in my hands, you know, like figuratively, like punching. I love it. I love it. I love boxing. I love I love the bare knuckle idea as well. I feel like that's where I need to be.
I love it. I've got so many, I mean, so many friends over at BKFC. Um, Jesus, like Chris Lieben. Chris Lieben, I'm so cool. Like, I'm so glad I could call him a friend, right? Lieben, you know, one of the greatest uncrowned, you know, he's a champion in life, right? But one of the greatest like competitors that the UFC and MMA as a whole had ever done. I mean, that's ever been, right? And the way that they were able to have Lieben have his one last ride, right? And he was knocking people out. I mean, Lieben's a jiu-jitsu black belt, right? He's the one who Anderson Silva famously knocked out in his first fight. You know, Joe Rogan talks about it. Like everybody wanted to bet the house on Lieben. It was like, no, you should. Literally told his friend that was betting, it was like, no, bet on the Brazilian, right? Um, but you know, Chris still gives back. He's a member of both the CAMO out here, which is the amateur organization, the California Amateur Mixed Martial Arts Organization, and also with CSAC, California State Athletic Commission.
Okay.
Lieben is both a judge and the referee for both, right? And he trains down in San Diego, right? He has his own gym. That is a smart dude, and knowing what he went through too, in terms of his battles and addictions and whatever, right? And then he got himself right. He's already doing all the positive things, has a kid, very similar story to yours, right? Has a kid. And then he's feeling the best he's ever felt. And he wants to fight again. And the way that bare knuckle treated him, I mean, it almost brings tears to my eyes. So shout out to BKFC. I got to ask, like, what did you think about Knuckle Mania? Because we're kind of on the tail end of it. It just happened this weekend. Conor McGregor at the helm with David Feldman. So, I mean, what was your take?
I think it's coming to take over the UFC. I would love to see that sport hit that peak, man, because that was an amazing card, and it wasn't just grabbing and slugging. They put on a show. They put on a really good show, and it was good boxing. A lot of finishes. The champion Terrell losing, being dethroned, by Big. I forgot his name, that
Big Ben Rothwell.
Yeah, Big Man Rothwell. That was just nuts. That was nuts. I was super excited for Terrell because he's a fellow. He's part of my management agency, and I was just rooting for him. Me and my other teammates, I guess you could say, and just seeing him get dethroned, just so much emotion. And seeing Stevens and Eddie Alvarez, that was crazy as well. I wanted Eddie to get it in his hometown, but Stevens is going through it, and he showed up. And then you got Conor wanting to get in the mix. A big thanks to Conor for giving the promotion. Big thanks to Conor for giving the promotion like all this hype, and he's kind of carrying it. He's pushing it forward, and I hope it goes to that next level.
No, absolutely, absolutely. I buried the lead. One of the good brothers is the Mr. Life Worldwide, Jeff Houston, who's the ringmaster essentially of BKFC, and he's done so many cool things in both MMA and pro wrestling, and he is the voice of BKFC. So like so many good people have gotten like a second win, or not just a second win, like Christine Misfit Ferreira. She had like a 50-50 record, in theory, in MMA. The first time I saw her was fighting in Invicta, right? And both her and Helen Peralta, right? And they've had amazing careers. Taylor Starling, like, you want to talk about like female combat sports? Like BKFC, probably even better than the UFC. And I don't want to go better and whatever. I love it all, right? I don't care what you call it. If it's in a ring or a cage, I'm in, right? But it's an amazing organization, and especially like how people were kind of like thumbing their nose, like, this BKFC, the bare knuckle, blah, 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 it's too violent because the cuts and everything like that. But where it's gotten now, right? And like UFC will always be the UFC, right? You got to think about it. So what Conor wanted, right? He wanted ownership stake. He didn't want to just be the biggest or the highest paid person in the UFC. He wanted ownership stake. And this is pre-WME, right? The sell-off, right? But maybe Dana and the Fertittas knew, like, hey, we're trying to sell this thing. Like, we can't give you even a minority stake in this, right? So in many ways, you're seeing what Conor could have been with the UFC for BKFC. And again, this is where BKFC is almost like a phoenix out of the ashes, where they give so many people opportunity. And I've seen some of the contracts at BKFC. Bro, I mean, it is for an upcoming fighter, right? That maybe is making their debut or whatever. BKFC, there's a BYB Extreme. Like, those are money contracts, bro. Like, better than a short notice fight in the UFC, which is only like 2-2 or 3-3, right? Yeah, 3 to show and then 3 to win, right? And you get your accommodations, but like, some of the coaches are already, you're already courting a guy in the UFC or a girl in the UFC, or your coach is whatever. So the coach is going to get their travel taken care of one way or another, right? But like everything that you have to go through for like $6,000. That's $1,000 a week. That's almost like minimum wage, like in most places, right? And that's it. And hopefully you could, get. Hopefully you fight on a UFC actual like pay-per-view card, and then you get, a couple seconds with Rogan. Then you can plead your case, and But like what BKFC doing, it's amazing, and with the sport that much like catch wrestling, a lot of people like jujitsu, this and that, whatever. But like so the principles and the foundation of fight, right? What boxing looked like in Roman times is probably more like what BKFC is offering, right? So they basically revived a sport that had been long since, outside of like the UK, had been dormant, and they're making it a worldwide spectacle, very much like the early days of the UFC and or Pride, right? When they sold out that arena, like I was just like, yeah, man, that's. But it's been a long time coming, and there's been so many people that I just believed in it, and for them to get to where they are now, it's amazing, right? And then now there's a platform for other people to get like second chances or first chances and whatever. Now there are people that are not even training, like in the UFC, right? Where we have the jiu-jitsu practitioners, the Muay Thai specialists, all that, whatever. And now we have people that are just training straight MMA, all of it, all encompassing, right? So now we are living in a time which didn't exist a couple of years ago, where people are specifically just training for bare knuckle. Like that is the sport, nothing else. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it is, and I want to help pioneer that sport. I really love it. I'm young. I'm 25 years old, but I can see myself being there for a while. I really want to put on a show there. It's my style. I love it. It's punching, the whole grappling thing. It's fun and all. UFC MMA is really saturated with all these new high school, college wrestlers that are trying it out, and it's tough. If you don't have a heavy wrestling background. And BKFC, it's straight to the point. No disrespect to grappling, but yeah, we each have our styles, and I definitely like punching people. Yeah.
And it looks like you've had some pretty good success, so that just makes sense to me.
Man, I love it. Yeah, I don't really like to go in there, and I never had the intention to go in there and go kill somebody. I never get into that mindset. I'm usually in there trying to survive, and I'm almost kind of scared when I'm in there, and I'm just circling, and it just survival instinct kicks in, and I'm not trying to beat the crap out of them. I'm not trying to. It's crazy. I'm just knocking them down out of survival. That's kind of where I'm at right now. I hope it evolves into a more refined mindset where I'm not really maybe it's a good mindset to have, but I'll get better understanding in there. My whole amateur career, it's all been first round, either knockouts or submissions. It's either go straight to the ground. My boxing career, it's been good. It's been they go the distance. You got your 12-ounce, you got your headgear and your 12-ounce gloves. So knockouts are really rare in amateur boxing, but I kind of had one yesterday. It was crazy, but anyway, a knockout. So amateur boxing has helped me kind of unravel, and then I do an amateur kickboxing bout, and I'm wearing 10-ounce gloves with no headgear, and I got a knockout. That was a few 2 months ago. And yeah, it's just MMA. It's totally, yeah, everything. Yeah.
Well, I just love it, right? The fact that no matter what you do, right? What discipline that you know, kind of that speaks to you, right? That you can make a career, right? In jiu-jitsu, you've got, the any and all of the members of the Danaher Death Squad, right? Gordon Ryan, Nikki, like all of those guys, right? And then you've got like Mike Messamucci, who went over to one and then is now, I mean, he's pretty much the reason why they have a UFC grappling thing, right? Just to sign him, right? There's competitive Lethway. There's so many avenues where you can make a good living if you want to do it. And in theory, as a combat sports athlete, you have a 5 to 7 year window to make good on it, right? So you're like 2 years in, right? And at a amazing point, 25, 25, you're kind of, you're getting out of the adolescent, teen, young man phase, right? And then now some of your, body chemistry is basically hardwired for this, right? So from 25 to 35, this could be, and statistically speaking, the greatest run of your life, right? It's just how we're going to get there. It's coaching. It's, notoriety. It's being put on good platforms that know how to, present to you, right? Like you were saying about that guy that you fought, right? He was on all the promotionals. Like whether he was a badass or not, it made you believe that, right? And in every instance, every generation, perceptions are everything, right? Don't judge by a book by its cover. Like any adage, right, goes into perspectives, right? And what did you do? That meant nothing on that day because that day you're a better man. You can, and then if there's a rematch, that's why there's money in the rematch, right? Because you did well, then they do well, and whatever. And if you play that scenario like 5 times out, it's just who was better on that day, right? Or who cut weight. And that's so funny, right? Like the variables, right? When you think about like cutting weight, if somebody does it right versus wrong, right? And then they rehydrate better than their opponent, right? And their opponent, in theory, statistically speaking, has the experience, has the know-how, has the technique, everything like that. And just because they didn't rehydrate well, the person with lesser skills, lesser experience, is the one that wins that day. It's crazy when you think about it, how many variables that
It is.
are in combat sports. But I mean, this is here, and it plays out like literally what 6 to 24 times, if, depending on where you're at, right,
That's
on a fight card,
right.
everywhere in America, everywhere in the world, right now, and people are making money.
Hmm. Yeah, that kid at my first fight, he was like I said, 2 divisions higher, weight classes higher. He missed weight. So I had all these things in my head saying, "Oh, I'm gonna go get torn apart. This guy's way larger than me, muscular as hell, ripped." And in his head, he's got his sponsors, he's got 6 tables, he's got a bunch of support there, and it's crazy how it played out. That first one, I always look back at it and I'm like, wow, what I overcame versus what he had to overcome. Yeah, and then yeah, it's just crazy, that one. Those variables are very true. Yeah.
So, I mean, we're gonna obviously combat sports, right? But you and I, there is another thing that brings us together, and your love, my love, for what I consider one of the no the greatest decade in music history, from January 1st, 1980 to December 31st, 1989. Give me a better decade in music. I don't think you can. Hip hop, rock, classic rock, metal, punk, jazz, R&B, soul, like Led Zeppelin's recording, James Brown's recording, like every genre. You want to go jazz, Spiral Jackets and Chaka Khan and like Bruce Hornsby in the Range, right?
Right,
So
right.
where you at? What are you listening to in terms of like your '80s music consumption? And do you have a favorite '80s artist?
Man, I was liking Bruce Springsteen a lot. He's pretty cool. He's got some jams. Who else we got? Man, just the movies in the '80s. You got the Rocky series. You got, man, and nowadays all these new shows that are bringing back the '80s as well, and they bring back the culture and really show it off as well. Like makes you just want to go back and live in it. Right after the '70s, and they say it was just a really beautiful time. I always like to talk about the '80s music, and yeah, they always say that the '80s was such a great, perfect time right before things got really complicated and right after things were very complicated. They said '80s was just a really good place to be. And like, yeah, the movies, like I said, Netflix constantly bringing back the '80s, and It just it looks really good, yeah. And you almost want to just live in that. You know, you don't want to be overly crowded with all this new music. You know, if you're not a fan of it, if it doesn't fit your personality, I just love feeling out of it, out of this. You know, I like to be in my space, and sometimes I put myself in a Rocky movie. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's good. I mean, who doesn't want to be Rocky? Chasing chickens and running up the damn staircase, bro. Like, you're fighting for the girl and Adrian and trying to see better in her than she sees herself, and she sees you better. Like, it's a. I mean, that is a guy romantic. That's a guy rom com. Like it's so good, right? And the relationship he has with his son. My favorite '80s movie. I mean, without a doubt Back to the Future 1 and 2.
Shoot, man.
Those, oh man, it, I could watch it right now and not get bored. And just the way, and we're living like what 5 years past that time, and that they kind of envisioned and everything like that. And we don't have it, but it's just like the thought that that could be, and hoverboards and all that stuff. Like it's a to me, I feel like it's amazing. And then like some of the, obviously like Ferris Bueller. You say yourself as Rocky. I'm very much Ferris Bueller. Ever since I saw that, like I'm just like Ferris Bueller's Day Out is my thing. But I'm equal parts Ferris Bueller, right? Like the mischievous, kind of cunning dude, but also Cameron, like the kind of sensitive, like kind of fearing person. The '80s really helped. I think like civilization figure itself out.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Star Wars. I don't. Was Star Wars in there? I think.
Star Wars. I think the second one is because 70. I actually just saw something not too long ago where the first Star Wars opened up in San Diego, and then there was one movie theater that screwed up, and they didn't have the film. They
Mm.
promoted it, but they didn't have the film,
Oh,
so it like cut out and whatever. So I want to say like the first one was like 70 something, and then the
78.
next, yeah, and then like by 81, 82 is the second one.
Star Wars, Star Trek, freaking Back to the Future, just opened the minds of the people to the stars, and it really
Yeah,
did help. I don't know what the big impact it had today in it, but it's really cool to see that. It's really cool to see that being put into consciousness back then.
yeah. And you also, one of my favorite artists is the boss, Bruce Springsteen, for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm a latter Springsteen guy. Like I find it, and I'm aging myself, but like my first job was like early 2000s, right? 2003, four, right? And I was working at Hertz Rental Car at LAX, right? The big airport here. And my job was just to take down the gas, right? Like if you filled up the tank versus not, we charge you like $8 a gallon, whatever, if any part of it was on E, right? But there were things that people let, because they're trying to make their plane, they want to get the rental back before they get charged, whatever, and they'll just leave stuff, right? So I mean, bottles of Jack, there's a bunch of stuff, right? But the best thing that ever got left in a car that I basically procured was Bruce Springsteen The Rising album. And I think it came out like a year or two before I actually got it. But when the person like drives in, you could hear them playing the record. I call it record, even though it was a CD. You can hear them play the record, and then they leave, and the record's still playing. You know,
Yeah.
and I'm all like, what is this? Like Bruce to me sounds like America. Doesn't matter if you're in the heartland, doesn't matter if you're in the penthouse, whatever. It's Bruce is the soundtrack to a lot of that stuff. And even like, if you don't know already, do you know about the Gaslight Anthem?
No.
Oh, I'm gonna send you some stuff, bro. Uh,
Okay.
like they're very influenced by Bruce, and it's like what if Bruce and the E Street Band came out today, right? Obviously not as big of a band because there's like 17 people in Bruce's band, right? Plus backup singers. But like if you got Bruce to a 4-piece, guitar, drums, bass, and extra guitar, right? Maybe 5-piece. Like that is the Gaslight Anthem, at least to me. And they're great. Their music is. I'll send you some stuff, and I want to know what you think because
Please
I,
do. That
I,
interests me.
yeah, I have such an affinity to both things. And then also, um, I'm a huge like Eric Clapton fan. Eric Clapton, John Mayer, Phil Collins. Those are like my holy trinity of musical taste. And everything else that I'm listening to, it revolves around those three. It always comes back. I mean, like my favorite Eric Clapton album I've found out is this album called Journeyman, which also well, actually it comes out. It was recorded in the '80s, and I think it comes out '90.
Oh,
Right?
okay. Still.
Yeah, it just yeah, right. Tickling the taint of the '80s, but on a lot of I think 3 of the tracks, right? Phil Collins is actually playing drums for Eric Clapton. Like you get these weird kind of like interludes where
Yeah.
like or like a Michael McDonald's, right? And you like the yacht rock, right? Well, there's a reason why he's in a lot of those songs that he just you know he was a session guy, then he gets with the Doobie Brothers and then has his whatever, but he still was a session guy. And like there's a good 10-year period where Michael McDonald is singing either lead or backup to like 70 different songs. And it's weird and it's wild, but that's the 80s. Like this, you know, the art, you have Andy Warhol, you have, you know, for many argue that it's the golden age of pro wrestling with the Hulk Hogan and Macho Man and whatever. Like everything was just like, it was so bustling. And I think this is as kids, like we still had innocence. Like we didn't have you know, I think I was one of the last generations where like if you went too far on your bike toward the end of town,
Yeah.
a policeman would be like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And then whatever, and then put you know your bike in his whatever and return you to your parents. You know, or you know, just don't be out past when the street lights when the street lights come on and you're not in the house, and you know you're grounded like
Wow.
that.
That
It, it's an innocence.
bring it back, man.
I think. I mean, there's like we don't have to fully go steampunk, right? Where everything like abandon all technology because there's great in that, right? Because like what we have an affinity for the '80s or any other decade, right, was madness and witchery to decades before, right? So like if you showed somebody at the turn of the century, right, a DeLorean, hell, a Toyota, a
Right. Yeah.
1984 Toyota is somebody that was living that in the. I mean, they were in the room when the Constitution, whatever. They'd be like, "Which get from here? We're burning you at the stake." Right, and so you can't abandon it all, right? But you can take. It's the difference between like being influenced by versus like a carbon copy. Like you can be influenced by Chuck Liddell. Doesn't mean that you have to be Chuck Liddell because Chuck Liddell,
I,
you're not going to win that. Chuck Liddell is always going to be Chuck Liddell, right?
right.
You can be
Yeah.
influenced by him. The dedication, if you see any of the footage of him and the rest of the guys at the pit running up and down John Hackelman's like, you know, uh, backyard and pushing tires and stuff like that, you can gain a lot of inspiration there, right? But do you want to be that? No. And that's the difference, right? So, and I think that's what you're doing with your career, right? You're bringing some like new age, but also old school vibes to your presentation.
Yeah. Definitely take a lot of inspiration from not much of crap today. There's not much I can look at today and be like, yeah, this is awesome. Besides the opportunities, but man, being yourself and being just bringing the classic vibes to it. I said vibes, but yeah, definitely don't want to fit in. I do not want to fit in.
Exactly. You can party So this is a kind of a thing that I had, and I actually used to. Uh, I'm still loosely a part of it, but we had this kind of production group, the free admission media, right? So everybody's invited, right? There's no velvet ropes here. We're gonna take you along for the ride, right? So for me, especially living in a town where like, if your name isn't on the list, you ain't anything, right? Cool. I don't need to be on the list. Watch me party in the bloody alley, and the people inside are going to want to come outside and see how much fun we're having. So I don't. What you think I need, I do not need.
Man, I'm just thinking about how you enjoy yourself. Like you were talking about your last weekend with your buddies. Like that just sounds really nice. Out here, a small town, nothing but hookup culture and bars playing, whatever's popping nowadays and feeding into that. I wonder how. Yeah, man. I need to hang out with some different people. That's all I gotta say. We need some culture. We need some different culture around here.
Well, variety is the spice of life, and also I'm not saying that there weren't any hookups. My goodness, we're not choir boys here. I mean, at least me. But but all of those things could be true, right? And different, you sometimes you got to get different looks, just like how you were saying about the different team that came into your guys' gym for like kind of a open sparring session, right? You guys both needed that, right? I remember the first time that happened to me when I was training jiu-jitsu. My goodness, right? So I'm a no stripe white belt, right? And there was a competition not too long, right, like from where our gym was, right? And these people were from Canada of all places, right? They
Shoot.
came in, yeah, they came in, whatever. And I'm not saying anything about like this has no bearing. Like Canadians are great. I mean, even when I was in school, I got tired of telling people where I was from and Fijian and black and how I sounded this way. So I just told everybody I was from Canada. So I have deep affinities to Canada. So this is nothing against them. This team just so happened to be from Canada. And I remember there was like a blue belt. Like that is where I wanted to be. I wanted to be a blue belt so bad. And I sparred with one of their like the most proficient blue belts. And he didn't do well.
Yeah, let's go. And were you nervous?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there might be pee stains on my gi for sure. You know?
Let's go.
Yeah. And then I was just like, oh. And for me, it was always like you always have to put yourself with people that are better than you, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm a podcaster, content creator, what have you. I listen and watch people that are better than me to get new takes. If you're a guitarist, whatever, and again, being influenced by versus being a carbon copy of it. And however you feel towards it, that's up to you, you know. But what I have found, right, is by doing all this, right, you get to see yourself in ways that you wouldn't otherwise. You got to put yourself through stress tests, right? So those folks coming in, and then I wipe the floor with this blue belt, and I'm like, maybe the technique that I'm getting here, it really does work, you know? And at that time, I couldn't afford to do like the competition or whatever, but also there was like a John Jacques Machado seminar at my gym that we were hosting and whatever. So I used the money towards that and got to train with one of the greatest jiu-jitsu practitioners ever, so like that's it. And what that does for you coming out of it, it's I mean, you could argue me doing podcasts now is stemming from the confidence that I didn't have before and I have now grappling with that Canadian blue belt.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And it just reminds me that, yeah, so many doors opened whenever other gyms came in. And yeah, it's whenever you meet new people and test yourself against other completely different gyms. And yeah, I can't forget that. Yeah, that really helped me. I can't forget that. Yeah. Happened yesterday. Happened whenever I met my new coach, Robert Madrid. He saw me spar Garden City's best. And He saw me spar this kid with like a 16-3 record. He's really talented. All the respect to that kid. And I didn't know anything about him. And I just went in there and they're like, yo, when the other team comes, you have to, it's not no light spar. You got to go hard whenever it's another team coming into town. So that's all the only advice I took. And I was at this new boxing gym. I went and fought this kid, 16-3, really talented kid. I didn't know anything about him. And I was coming off a really good win because, I ended up losing, but I freaking broke this kid's face with my right hand. I learned the power of my right hand. I started working that, and I kept working it against this kid and following up with it. And man, I had him rocked, and I did pretty good. And that day, everything changed. My whole career changed. It was another pivotal moment because I got noticed, and I made a new friend, training partner. His name's Danny Aguilar from Garden City, Kansas. And we constantly share messages and share respect and train whenever we can. We always organize spars, but he made me so much better, and he brought me to a whole nother level, just sparring with another club like that. And I might have done the same yesterday for a kid from Hutch who came down. He sports a 2-2 boxing record, which is more than me. I don't have that many boxing fights. I was supposed to fight this kid, and we ended up not fighting a few months ago for my second fight. I fought a kid with 13 boxing fights and only had one. People say I won that one. People say I lost it, but it was a really good one. They came down. I ended up fighting another kid, his teammate that day, but boom, I ended up fighting that kid I was supposed to fight yesterday, and I got the knockout, and it was crazy. But I'm sure he was really grateful. So it's just I got to be aware of that. The being respectful to that, being aware to training with other people and having a good attitude about it, because it really is good. Because you're reminding me right now, it's true.
Oh, thanks. No, but I mean, I've had other people remind me, it's just, paying it forward. That's what life is. And the more you do that, the more experience you gain, and then you're able to share. And then also, the best leaders are the ones that know how and when to be followers, right? So, and that's it. And the duality, right? It plays out in so many different contexts, and, you know, there's variables to that equation, and it's awesome when it works, and I mean, heartbreaking when it doesn't, honestly. But it's such is life, right? Such is life.
Well said.
So before we get you out of here, I want to do some quick hits. What are your so are you training for a fight now?
Yeah, I got one in 3 weeks and some change.
Okay, so talk to us about that.
It's going to be against a purple belt. He's 29 years old. He's fought on FAC, which is one of the biggest promotions in Kansas. He's had nothing but dogfights. Really, really tough guy. And I'm taking with me a teammate that he started after seeing me win my first fight. He's been in the gym. He's undefeated right now. He's a college wrestler. MMA is his thing. He's really good, and he's a fantastic boxer. He boxed the national champ yesterday when that team came down, and he did really good. I believe in this kid a lot. His name's Misael Menares. I really wish him the best, but me and him are going to be on the same card, and it's been so long since we got to fight alongside each other, so I'm very hyped about that. And this is all thanks to my connection, Robert Madrid, my new coach, the former bare knuckle fighter. So it's a lot of hype. The town really, really cheers us on, and we got an opportunity to show out. Really, me and him on the same card. We work hard. He's my right hand man. We work hard in this almost every day. He sent me a message while we were doing this. Let's go sauna, and I didn't respond. But yeah, we're always side by side. We're always training hard together, and that guy's a brother. And me and him me and him sharing the stage and going to the same promotion, representing our town. It's just a dream come true, really, for me and him. And it's a good first step for, it's first of many steps, but we're going in the right way. I'm very happy I get to share the spotlight with him, me and him.
That's so cool, because usually, the only person that can understand what you're going through is your opponent, right? Because they're the only person in the ring kind of battling it out with you, right? So when you have a brother in arms, that knows how much this means to you, and it means to them, right? Now you guys can kind of compare notes, whatever. You know, I'm not weight cutting alone because I got you, you know, and then I mean, less money is allocated for corners for sure, right?
Yeah, sure.
And,
Yeah.
yeah. Obviously, so you're cutting weight right now, but like when you're not cutting weight, like what do you have like go to things? Like what is the I guess cuisine, the culinary delights of where you're at now?
Man, I'm a very, very strict guy when it comes to my health and my diet. I have like one meal a day, and it's usually just high protein. I don't eat much carbs. I'm one of those crazy guys who just eats like a carnivore, steak and eggs. You know, I only eat one meal a day. I fast a lot continuously. I believe in the power of fasting. So many other tricks, so many other things I do, but I'm always around this weight, 142, 140, and then I cut down to 135. It's not much, but whenever I become a professional, I will be at 125. And yeah, that's whenever it'll be a little bit more tougher. I've made that cut once, and I had immense power there, and I felt really freaking good at that weight. And I'm really big for that size as well. I'm 5'8", so uh, man, and I roll against 125ers all the time and spar against them sometimes too. I'm a really big 125er whenever I make the weight. But man, I have it pretty easy. You know, I only got to cut like 5, 6 pounds. My opponent has to cut a little bit more. My teammate though, yeah, he's a welterweight, so he's got to cut like 30 to 20 pounds. And yeah, I can see him suffer, but I'm always there with him. Yeah.
Like I said, you know, to have a brother in arms, kind of battle. I mean, I think that's one of the worst parts, you know, of fighting, if not the worst part, is the weight cuts. You know, I guess you can thank or blame Mark Ratner, you know, in the UFC because they were trying to get you know UFC, you know, sanctioned, right, in the early to mid '90s, right? So like, oh, it's kind of like boxing and kind of like wrestling and in boxing and you know, amateur and Greco, it's weight cutting, right? And some crazy weight going, especially if you're a wrestler, some crazy weight cutting methods that I mean they don't bode well for long term vitality, right? And but that's got what got borrowed and ported over to MMA. I think what one FC was trying to do with like the hydration tests and whatever, I think that was it. And to me, just like ideologically, right? So if you see a 185-pound fight, like, and when they step into the ring or the cage and they're 205, well, we're no longer seeing a 185-pound fight.
Sure.
Like, is this the ultimate weight cutting championships? Because you just cut weight on the day, right? And then you're something else. Like, to me, it's weird, you know. But again, I'm not on the commission. I don't have to do that. But when I see it happen, I'm just like, oh. When I see it happen and it goes south, it just, oh no, what impact is that going to have on the kidneys and the liver uh, and even worse, where like some you know non-fan comes to the fight because they're supporting somebody else or whatever, and like, oh my god, you look so good at weigh-ins. No, what you're seeing is somebody close to death, devoid of water and nutrients and stuff like that. And that's what you put on your kind of like vision board for who and what you want to look like.
Spot on, man. It really is that's going to be a tough one to fix. In amateur boxing, though, they do weigh-ins hours before the fight, and whenever I did my first amateur boxing, I was so nervous, but it was at a higher weight, my walk-around weight, and that kid was like 147. He was way heavier than me. His brother's a bare knuckle fighter. So many bare knuckle fighters in my life coming into my life, but yeah, I fought. Yeah, it was crazy. He had it hard though. You could tell he was asking for Pedialyte right after he got on the scale, you know, and he was heavier than me, and I ended up winning that bout, but in his home turf. And my second one, man, it's just crazy. All these boxing kids, they know how to do it. They know it's that day and no problem, smiles, everyone's chilling. And I'm so used to getting that night's rest and plenty of time to replenish all those liquids and solids. It was different, but yeah, I'm kind of happy it's there. I'm not gonna lie. that whole day to replenish. But at the same time, like you said, it's not the weight cutting championships. People need to be more honest about it, about their training weight, walk around weight. But it's cool.
I love it. Like there's some trepidation, but like it's cool. I like it. That's it. I'll do it if I have to. I do it.
Yeah, a few pounds. I don't care, man. Like my first fight, I had to overcome that. He was way heavier than me, and he missed weight. We had to go to a new weight, 140. I didn't even make 140 because it was a long time ago, and I wasn't at that weight. I was gonna fight 125. He missed weight. He was like 143.8. So I was like, wow. And he looked at me. He's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought I was good." And I was like, "It's whatever, man. Let's just bang. Let's just go and get it over with the next day." So yeah, I overcame that demon. So I don't care if they're a few pounds heavier. I only spar with heavier people. So yeah, I don't mind it.
Now I see where the power comes from.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Man.
trading with bigger guys. Yeah, that'll do it. Because then also like if you're one for finesse, right? The finesse comes with training with smaller people, and or if you're a guy, females, right? Because there's a lot more things that you have to be cognizant of, right? Like as a dude rolling around with a female, and you don't want to be that guy, right? Or the guy nobody wants to train with, or you roll over on her or whatever. So you get a lot more technique rolling with females or smaller people, right? Weight wise or stature wise, right? And then you get a lot of power, training with the bigger opponents, no matter what sex they are, so like, and all of that, right? That's if this is the proverbial, I don't know, buffet that is combat sports, right? That's where you're at. You want it all. You want some bigger training partners, same size training partners, different females, males, like whatever, right? Because that gives you a full scope of your abilities, and also you're that to them as well.
Yeah,
it's so cool to have that team aspect in combat sports, and I mean, it happens in obviously happens in striking disciplines, right? But like the margin of error for that is so thin, right? Because you're like, I'm going 20, and either you tap that chin or somebody taps your chin, night, night.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with jiu-jitsu, like, I love the catch and release or catch wrestling, whichever. Catch wrestling is a little bit dirtier because like you can just grab your forearm and drive it across somebody's face, and as you're like face cranks are a thing in catch wrestling. So, like you can just do it and that's it. But the transfer of information, this transfer of language and experience that happens, it's unlike anywhere else, And then also if you're at a gym, right? Like you can play basketball. Are you going to ever play with LeBron? Probably not, right? Or whoever your basketball, heroes are, right? But if you wander into a gym, especially like open mat, and oh my God, that's that guy and girl from the UFC or BKFC, or to other people. Oh my God, you're a Shamrock veteran. Like, that's big to some people. To an amateur fighter that isn't there yet, So like that means so much. So in combat sports, you can literally go to a gym, right? Like you pay a daily rate at Wildcard, and you'll be there with Freddie Roach, and he'll treat you the same as he does Manny Pacquiao. I've seen him do it. So like that's the thing. Like you could rub elbows and get, what is it? Advice and just perspective on somebody that has literally been at the highest levels of what you're trying to attain to, and that is so much different in combat sports than I feel any other place.
Yeah. It's really available, but it's only those who really seek it. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Now, as you're heading into this, was it we're 3 weeks out, less than a month out?
Yes.
Obviously, there have been so many people, both in your life and career, that have readied you for this, right? This fight. Take as long as you need. Let's get some shout outs out of the way.
Man, Robert Madrid. Robert Madrid came into my life right at the right time, and he lives far away. I haven't given the man any money, and he's always inviting us to go practice with him. He's always there. He's made the drive, and he's been in my corner. You know, he travels 4 hours to go corner me. He's traveled 8 hours to go corner me, and he shows up with a great attitude, and he's worried about me winning the fight, and that's something that it's amazing to have that. My comrade Misael Menares, we've worked hard almost every day, you know, and we're gonna work hard for a long time. We got a long road ahead of us. He's a little bit heavier than me, but man, he's my brother, and we're doing work. We're representing our town, and yeah, it was a lonely start at first. It was just me by myself. You know, I had a lot of local fighters. Danny Aguirre from Liberal, Kansas. He sports a 4-5 professional record. You know, he was my size, and I always made him a target. I was like, I got to beat this guy up. I don't know anything about pros and amateur. I just put a target on him. If I can beat him up, I'm ready for the next level. And he was a good stepping stone for me. There was, you know, where I started, you know, with my first gym, David Ryan. He's an older fellow karate guy. He was really cool, you know, but you can tell he doesn't really focus on the fighter. He focuses on his promotion. And I look back, I was going to fight a 145-pound guy, and you know, I got lucky. I won. You know, I got lucky. I came out of there, you know, with only a few losses, but no, that's where I started, and I do owe my respect to him still. But other than that, man, it's all thanks to God. I really give all the thanks to God for this beautiful life that He's given me, and these obstacles that are placed in front of me because they make me better, and forgiving me for being a horrible sinner, like all of us. Yeah, it's all God and these doors that He's opening for me. I wouldn't think that God would want this for anybody. Yeah, go fight, you know. But I really feel that the cosmic winds pushing me to fight, man. I feel the doors opening. I feel the opportunities coming in, and they're not because of my hard work or anything. They're just miracles sometimes, you know. Justin Martinez out of Wichita, Kansas. He's a bare knuckle fighter as well. Yeah, he's the one who's opening up the next door, it seems, for bare knuckle. And I'm gonna have Robert Madrid with me as well in that journey. And I'm just really excited. I was asking for bare knuckle so long. If you'd seen me on my Instagram and my Facebook, I'd be constantly saying, one day I'm gonna be here. One day I'm gonna be here. And the door opened after my 2 fights ago. After I got a knockout, the door opened. Now I'm signed to Storm Athlete Management Agency, and they're going to bring this opportunity to me. And yeah, Justin Martinez, thank you so much. Robert Madrid, thank you so much. Misael Menares, you're my brother, bro. We got a lot of work to do.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And for those who haven't already done so, where can they find you on the socials?
Audit MMA, OHT, MMA. That's Tito backwards. They used to call me Tito as a kid. And Robert Alexander Fichtner on Facebook. Yeah, you guys can come support. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, speaking of support, thank you for doing this. This supports me in this podcast. Like, I really appreciate it. And if you, I mean, you're subscribed to the podcast, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you guys aren't subscribed to the podcast, you can do so. Be like him. Be like me. It's not nepotism if you want yourself to succeed, right? We should all want each other to ourselves, and then other people succeed. But go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to the According to Woods podcast on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. That's all a thing, right? Yeah, there's some fun stuff there, including this one that's going right in the archive. But dude, thank you so much for doing this. And again, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. If you don't believe me or Odit, I don't know why you wouldn't, but here's Zeta Zhang to help convince you.
Hey, this is Zeta Zhang. Make sure you subscribe to According to Woods YouTube.